Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Just a second, please. There's some technical issue. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kapjana Valabha Upijana Valabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajanandana Yashodanandana Brajajanandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavala Giri Bharatari Gopi Janavala Giri Bharatari Yashodandana Braja Janatandana Yashodandana Braja Janatandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Bhaji Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Bhaji Gopi Janabala Giri Gopi Janavala Girivaradari Yashodanandana Raja Janadandana Yashodanandana Raja Janadandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Radha, Damodara Radha, Damodara Radha, Damodara Sri Radhe, Jaya Lalita Vishaka, Lalita Vishaka. Lalita Vishaka Shiradhe, Nitai, Gorasundar Nitai, Gorasundar Nitai, Gorasundar Gorahari. From Vishnu Padmanam, Radhikacharya, Sri Srimad. His Divine Grace is Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Shri Radhikacharya, Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nanta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Vamsakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopanath Shyamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mathur Dham Ki Jai. Navadvi Dham Ki Jai. Gangamaya Munamai Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru Garanga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritam Naratman Rachava Devim Saraswati Vyasa Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtapreshu Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhagavati Naishchiki. Hare Krishna dear devotees. Thank you for joining for Srimad Bhagavatam class. We're resuming our usual Srimad Bhagavatam Katha and hearing. And we've missed, because of the retreat, some verses got missed. So we will read some of them today. I'm not going to get to verse 6, which is supposed to be today. But we're going to read today 3, 4, and 5, because they are, two of them are short, or rather short, and they're all interconnected because they all speak about the mind. So I'll read Sanskrit just for the, I'll read Sanskrit for all, but we will not recite, so I'll just read. Tata choktam na kuryat karhichit sakyam manasihi anavastite yat vishrambachiratchinam chashkandatapa aishwaram. Tata, so, cha, and utkam, it is said, na, never, kuryat, should do, karhichit, at any time or with anyone, sakyam, friendship, manasi, in the mind, he, certainly, anavastite, which is very restless, yat, in which, vishrambhat, from placing too much faith, chirat, for a long time, chirnam, practiced, Chashkanda became disturbed, tapa, the austerity, Aishwaram, of great personalities like Lord Shiva and the great sage Sarabhi. Translation. All the learned scholars have given their opinion. The mind is by nature very restless, and one should not make friends with it. If we place full confidence in the mind, it may cheat us at any moment. Even Lord Shiva became agitated upon seeing the Mohini form of Lord Krishna, and Rabbi Muni also fell down from the mature stage of yogic perfection. The first business of one trying to advance in the spiritual life is to control the mind and senses, as Sri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 15:7. Mamaivamsho jivaloke jivabhuta sanatana manasasthani indriyani prakritisthani karshati. Although the living entities are part and parcels of the Supreme Lord and are therefore in a transcendental position, they are still suffering in this material world and struggling for existence due to the mind and the senses. To get out of this false struggle for existence and become happy in the material world, one has to control the mind and senses and be detached from material conditions. One should never neglect austerities and penances. One should always perform them. Lord Vrishabhadeva personally showed us how to do this. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 9.19-17, it is specifically stated, Matra svashta duhitrava navi vikta sano bhavet balavan indriyagramo vidvamsam appikarshati. A grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasi, and brahmachari should be very careful when associated with women. One is forbidden to sit down in a solitary place even with one's mother, sister, or daughter. In our Krishna conscious movement, it has been very difficult to disassociate ourselves from women in our society, especially in Western countries. We are therefore sometimes criticized, but nonetheless, we are trying to give everyone a chance to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and thus advance spiritually. If we stick to the principle of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra offenselessly, then by the grace of Srila Haridas Thakur, we may be saved from the allurement of women. However, if we are not very strict in chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we may at any time fall victim to women. The next verse. Nityam dadati kamasya chidram tam anviyeryaya yogina krita maitrasya patyurjaye vapumshchali. An unchaste woman is very easily carried away by loss, and it sometimes happens that her husband is violently killed by her paramours. If the yogi gives his mind a chance and does not restrain it, his mind will give facility to enemies like lust, anger, and greed, and they will doubtlessly kill the yogi. Purport. In this verse, the word pushchali refers to a woman who is easily carried away by men. Such a woman is never to be trusted. Unfortunately, in the present age, women are never controlled. According to the directions of the Shastras, women are never to be given freedom. When a child, a woman must be strictly controlled by her father. When she is young, she must be strictly controlled by her husband. And when she is old, she must be controlled by her elderly sons. If she is given independence and allowed to mingle unrestrictedly with men, she will be spoiled. A spoiled woman, being manipulated by paramours, might even kill her husband. This example is given here because a yogi, desiring to get free from material conditions, must always keep his mind under control. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say that in the morning, our first business should be to beat the mind with shoes 100 times, and before going to bed, to beat the mind 100 times with a broomstick. In this way, one's mind can be kept under control. An uncontrolled mind and unchaste wife are the same. An unchaste wife can kill her husband at any time. An uncontrolled mind, followed by lust, anger, greed, madness, envy, and illusion, can certainly kill the yogi. When the yogi is controlled by the mind, he falls down into the material condition. One should be very careful of the mind, just as husband should be careful of an unchaste wife. Verse 5. Kamo manur madolabha shokamoha bhayadaya karma bandhaschayat mula svikuryat ko nu tad buddhaha. The mind is the root cause of lust, anger, pride, greed, lamentation, illusion, and fear. Combine these constitute bondage to fruit of activity. What learned man would put faith in the mind? Purport. The mind is the original cause of material bondage. It is followed by many enemies such as anger, pride, greed, lamentation, illusion, and fear. The best way to control the mind is to engage it always in Krishna consciousness. Savaimana Krishna Padaraya Vindayo. Since the followers of the mind bring about material bondage, we should be very careful not to trust the mind. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayarupa Kadamayam Darati Swabhavantikam Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nichinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtatyale Shatadine. Hare Krishna. Did I do this again? So, so today the topic that we will be discussing is the mind and the Acharya's view of this instrument that we are living with on a daily basis, and how is it a friend or an enemy in our spiritual practice or in life in general. What advices are given by the previous acharyas, and how to properly uh, deal with the mind, because that seems to be a root of all problems, huh? Yes, in Bhagavad Gita it says that even one unrestricted sense can drive your chariot away from the path of bhakti. And out of all those senses, of course, the mind is the king of senses. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita also that out of senses I'm the mind, meaning that the greatest potency lies in it. So if it becomes a dear friend, then it's a very reliable instrument to attain Krishna consciousness or be fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Like when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Advaitacharya why he's in the Ganges. He was supposed to go to Vrindavan and supposed to be Yamuna. Advaitacharya replied, "My Lord, your mind is Vrindavan. Wherever you are is Vrindavan." So in other words, that kind of state of mind that we would like to attain eventually. But until then, there are so many advices how to deal with the mind. We just heard from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur how a day should have started. I wonder how many of you have done this morning as a first thing, to beat your mind 100 times with a shoe. It's quite intense practice. I don't know if you have ever practiced it. I know devotees who did, and they say it's okay. Something happened here. And it says that, I mean, those devotees that were sharing that it's quite intense, to do. And devotees, I don't know what happened. It just got restarted, the computer. Since now we are back. Apologies for that. All right, so it's this very intense practice. If somebody have ever tried beating your mind with a shoe in your mind and with a broomstick in the evening, it's actually quite intense. So we will look at some other advices from our Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, that he gives about the mind. But let's just come back first to see I don't know, somebody's mic is on. Nagari Krishna Prabhu, if you can switch off your mic, please. And we will look at the okay, let's just look at the purports again. So Srila Prabhupada gives first advice about the mind is that we have to chant offenselessly. If we do that, then we may obtain the grace of Srila Haridas Thakur, the Nama Acharya, right? So whatever practice we're performing, there is some Acharya standing behind that practice who may help us if we are asking or seeking for that help. And of course, those Acharyas or Vaishnavas, they're very merciful. That's their nature, Karunika. And they are easily bestowing those blessings to us as long as we at least genuinely and sincerely try to follow or follow the process. So that's why it says Mahajana Gata Sapanta. If we follow the footsteps of Mahajans, then this path becomes very easy. Because it's already there's a direct indication, signs along the way, and the goal is clear. So that's the first advice that Srila Prabhupada gives here. Chanting offenselessly, then we will be saved from this allurement that may distract us, distract our mind. And the fourth verse, Srila Prabhupada here gives the example of a woman, unchaste woman, and the mind. And he says that the woman must be controlled at every stage of her life. Otherwise, this excessive freedom may end up, spoiling her, and not just her, but also uh, the lives of others. And this is an unfortunate situation for the Kali Yuga, that not only women but also men, because there's no guidance and understanding what must be done, what's good, what's not good, what association is good, what's not good. And so little children, teenagers or youth, usually youth, they become in that they enjoy that freedom or over enjoying this freedom, and it becomes a troublesome situation. I was personally a witness in New Zealand when I lived there in a student apartment and then later working, so I rented a flat after. But I've seen a lot of young girls coming to study at university at the age of 17, 18, and um, yeah, basically what was happening with them being far away from their parents and relatives in that environment was very unfortunate for their future. One extreme example, and that's the time when I actually started to come to Loft and becoming, interested in devotional service. In other words, I just started to practice. I had a neighbor. She lived on a 10th floor. I lived on a 3rd floor. So we met sometimes in an elevator, and I saw she's Russian, so we greeted each other sometimes. That's about it. So we only met in an elevator time after time and just said hello, how are you? That's all. And that's been going on for like 3 years. And one time we again met in an elevator, and she burst into tears and said, "Can I come over to you? I just have to speak to somebody." I said, "Yeah, sure, please come." I was 19 years old. And so she came and she started telling me that, um, her boyfriend dumped her, and she's drinking a lot of alcohol and smoking, and she sleeps in the day and doesn't sleep at night. At night she plays computer games and with her cat, spends time with her cat. and she failed the exams she had so far, and because she failed the exams and the study in universities like in New Zealand for foreigners, it's actually quadruple times more you pay than the local, the residents or the citizens of New Zealand. So it was like $17,000 New Zealand dollars that she was in debt to university because she had to repeat the papers. And so what she did, she sold the flat that her parents bought to her, sold it so she could get money to pay for her university next year again. And because she had to live somewhere, she started to rent the same flat that she lived in to those from those persons to whom she sold it to. You understand this? And she didn't say this to her parents. So, and because she couldn't find any job, and it seemed like that like this session or this semester will also be a failure because she doesn't go to the classes because of her lifestyle. Obviously, she cannot prepare for the exams because she doesn't study much at home, even though she gets those homeworks. And she cannot find the job. She was saying to me that maybe she will become a prostitute because, she doesn't see any other way to make money. So in that state of mind, she came to me to complain about her life. And I was looking at her, I was like, Hare Krishna, like this girl is a complete mess. In 19 years old, she spoiled her relationship with parents to such a degree that she cannot tell her parents of her problems. She's so desperate to, get some solution that I don't know what's going on. This computer rammer is signing me off, and I don't know if you will hear me again. It's gonna restart again, I guess. I don't know what to do. I'm trying mobile phone in the meantime. So if that falls down again, this computer rammer is restarting the computer automatically while I'm speaking. So I don't know what's going on. So while I'm signing in, I'll just continue here, and then once it's signed in, I'll switch off the phone again. So yeah, so in this state of mind she came, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, I have to help her because I had the knowledge now. So what I said to her, okay, I said, I cannot ask you to give up smoking because it's intense, but please don't drink alcohol. You have to start like life in a mode of goodness. So I said, let me wake you up every morning about 6 o'clock or 5, and let's go for a little jog, a run to the nearby Albert Park. Let's do it together because I'm doing it anyway. So just join me. And I said, you have to stop eating meat. It's really toxic, same as alcohol. Just a second. Okay. So back on the phone. I mean, back on the computer. So, and then I said, okay. And so, of course, I didn't say I will prasadam, but my point was that, okay, let's see what mode of goodness will do to her life. So that was my idea and plan. So, uh, I'm sorry about this. It's really intense today with technologies. Okay, so, and then what I mentioned to her is, yeah, let's just do it. So we started this program, and I'll just tell the story short. In 1 month time, uh, what happened is she reported to me that she passed the paper with marks of 51 and 49 and a half for other two. So what if, so you understand, uh, 50, or was it 50 and a half? Anyway, so 49 is a failure. You didn't pass the paper. 49 and a half or 50, whatever it was, it means it's passed, the paper is passed on condition of lecture of that dean who was supposed to give the knowledge to those students. And the funny thing, the funny part is that that tutor or that lecturer never saw her. She never came to his classes. So she did study still at home. She didn't go to the university. And then she came and passed the exam. So in other words, it was Krishna's miracle. So after 1 month, she was waking up at 6 o'clock and sometimes even, or even 5, and sometimes even earlier than me, already banging. So So she gave up drinking, and I was giving her prasadam. So she became, she just transformed in 1 month, and she found a job as a telephone interviewer. So, the other job option came off the list. And she even said to her parents that she failed papers in the year before, so they eventually sent her more money. She didn't tell yet that she sold the flat, but it was very scary. But she started to um, rebuild those relationships. And of course, she forgot about that boyfriend. So everything, everything got restored in her life in just 1 month by following some basic mode of goodness practices. And of course, Krishna Prasad was entering her life. And I was giving her some advices that are in line with Bhagavad Gita. Eventually, I gave her Bhagavad Gita, brought her to the loft a few times. And at that point, she had a chance to start the practice and change her life completely. Whether she did it or not, I don't know, because I left New Zealand right after that. But she had all the good chances. She could have spoiled it easily also, because a woman needs guidance, and especially in that age, that sensitive age, it's really nice if she would have a parent or an older brother or whoever that would guide her properly. So yes, so this situation is very unfortunate, and this comparison is given that the mind is like this polluted or yeah, chaste woman. In other words, it just goes to various places. It wants to do different things. Those wants and desires are just bombarding you and igniting different those anger, that is the other. It's just an emotion personified. A very dangerous situation. No buddhi, no intelligence. So so yes, and of course in the third, I have to speed up because we run out of time. So the third verse is speaking about how to engage your mind in Krishna consciousness. Savai mana Krishna padaravindayo. So there's a little more that Srila Prabhupada gives, and it's one of my favorite Bhagavad Gita verses in the 17th chapter, verse 16, that speaks about the mind and how to control it. And Srila Prabhupada gives an amazing purport. If we just start practicing what is there, and it's actually much more easy with broomstick or shoe, that means 200 times a day. So if you start practicing what's in that purport, I can guarantee that even beginning bhakta can actually make a tremendous progress on the path of bhakti, because it's actually very organic. It's actually not difficult. It's very natural to practice these advices. So let's hear what the austerities of the mind, which may seem a little difficult, the verse, but the purport will give us a great hope. So let's hear. Mana prasada samyatvam maunamatma vinigraha bhava samshudir ityeta tapamana samuchyate. And satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control and purification of one's existence are the austerities of the mind. Purport. To make the mind austere is to detach it from sense gratification. It should be so trained that it can be always thinking of doing good for others. Just that second sentence of this purport is what I'm trying to say, that it's so easy to do. In general, people are compassionate, even though being compassionate is actually one of the highest qualities of a Vaishnava. Like it's one of the most elevated qualities, and actually to develop it requires a lot of a lot of inner work, and a lot of austerities, and a lot of you're going through a lot of things yourself before this quality is really manifesting in you all the time. And of course, it actually very much connected with developing the love of Godhead. And from that, the true compassion comes. So there are different levels of compassion also. But still, actually thinking of doing good to others is not something uh, foreign to people in general, right? So when somebody has a birthday, at least at that day, in general, in modern day society, we want to give him or her, experience of a good day. It's your day, so you have to have a good day. So we want to do something good to that person. We will make some arrangements, some decorations, some balloons, and a little cake, and something just to make this person feel special. In other words, we want to do something good for that person to make their day better, right? So it's kind of natural. If somebody walk past by you, and his paper bag got wet, and the bottom of it teared, and all the apples and other ingredients in the chopping bag fell off, you will most likely come over and help, especially if it's an older person, help and, take those apples, whatever fell off from the bag, and help that person to carry it, to give another bag, or to carry it to the place where she goes, car or he. And that's natural, and it's unconditional. It's actually selfless, because you don't get anything from that, especially that real quick moment. You don't think, okay, I'll help her to get the apples to the bag, and then this pious activity will return to me, and I'll get 2 apples in my next life. You don't think like this, most likely, right? You'll just be acting very spontaneously in a good way. So that's natural. That's what I'm trying to say. So let's hear more. The best training for the mind is gravity in thought. One should not deviate from Krishna consciousness, and must always avoid sense gratification. To purify one's nature is to become Krishna conscious. Satisfaction of the mind can be obtained only by taking the mind away from the thoughts of sense enjoyment. That's another one. Although it actually feels difficult to take your mind away from sense gratification, because actually when the mind starts thinking about sense gratification, that sounds good, like a good proposal. You're thinking, oh, it gives pleasure to your mind, so you start contemplating on that sense object, this sense object, that experience, that sensual enjoyment that you have, or planning to have. So your mind gets absorbed. But the solution is just giving a few sentences before. Start at that moment. How to detach it? Prabhupada says here, just detach it from that sense enjoyment. What is it? By taking the mind away from thoughts of sense. So how to take your mind off those thoughts is to think of something else, especially about Krishna consciousness, meaning, how to give this person Krishna consciousness, to give him prasadam, or give him a book, or maybe I should say this or that, how to plan my day so I can actually give Krishna to somebody, how can I participate in this Sankirtana Yagya, how to serve devotees better, how to, there's like endless ideas and thoughts. Or if you already been in Krishna consciousness for some time, well, remember your brightest moments in Krishna consciousness that brought you a lot of joy, either this festival or Ratha Yatra, or some special reciprocation by the Lord, either the Murti, the deities, or in the holy name, or your experiences with devotees, and just remember their qualities, your spiritual master. There's so many things to remember, which is actually becoming very easy to divert your mind from that. You just have to say stop, but then after that stop, immediately have to come something else. they have to come as sweet candy, not a broomstick. I mean, you can try the broomstick, sometimes it works, but if you just do it all the time, your mind will maybe become a very, very ferocious. So rather give him a different candy of Krishna consciousness candy, you know, even yeah, even if you just had nice popcorn or, or ice cream with the retreat right now, so devotees are making popcorn and mango and strawberry ice cream offer to Krishna and then give to children mainly, but also devotees partake. And so, maybe you just had this wonderful experience. So, wow, how nice, we can offer such things in Krishna consciousness and its prasadam. So even like this. So whatever that was, just divert it to Krishna and expressing gratitude. So next, the more we think of sense enjoyment, the more the mind becomes dissatisfied. In the present age, we unnecessarily engage the mind in so many different ways for sense gratification, and so there is no possibility of the mind's becoming satisfied. The best course is to divert the mind to the Vedic literature, which is full of satisfying stories, as in the Puranas and the Mahabharata. So another great advice by Srila Prabhupada. This is already a third one in the same purport. Well, if your mind likes to contemplate on certain things, it likes to think, right? That's the mind's kind of thing. So think about, first read or hear. That's why Srimad Bhagavatam is every day. And then you can think about it. Whatever you hear in the morning, you can contemplate during the day. So the more you absorb in Krishna consciousness, Srimad Bhagavatam, right now we're reading about Rishabhadev, his wonderful qualities, how he will attain perfection, how his mind will get fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So you just start thinking about such personalities. Or, as in advice by Srila Prabhupada in this first verse today, number 3, get mercy of Haridas Thakur. Think how he defeated Maya personified, not just prostitute. He had twice the allurements that were women trying. One, the woman, the general woman of this world, prostitute, expert prostitute. But then the second one was Maya personified. She failed. The external energy of the Lord failed to allure Haridas Thakur. So if we think of offenseless chanting, and that's why we have to repeat those offenses to know them, so it's in order to avoid them. And then it's another wonderful way. So, and this all is ignited, all those thoughts are ignited during the Srimad Bhagavatam class. So your mind can get absorbed. Let's hear a little more. That's almost end. One can take advantage of this knowledge and thus become purified. The mind should be devoid of duplicity, and one should think of the well all. So that's kind of repeated the point. Silence means that one is always thinking of self-realization. So silence doesn't mean just mauna vrat, I'm not speaking to you. It's actually deep contemplation, focus, and concentration on higher subjects. The person is in Krishna consciousness observes perfect silence in this case, in this sense. Yes, because they speak, they engage their tongue and ears in Krishna Katha, and that's perfect silence, as described in Upadeshamrita. Control of the mind means detaching the mind from sense enjoyment. One should be straightforward in the dealings and thereby purify his existence. All these qualities together constitute austerity in mental activities. So you can see also a straightforwardness or simplicity. It's a great help. That's a part of a character, harder to develop, but harder to develop if you're not like this already. There are persons that are like this from just inbuilt quality in theirs. So Vaishnavas are actually straightforward. They are not so much duplicit and diplomatic. They can use the diplomacy actually. It's not that it's not allowed. Raghunath Das Goswami used diplomacy. Sanatan Goswami used diplomacy to, serve Krishna. It can be used, definitely. But amongst Vaishnavas, among dealings in Vaishnavas, it's based on love and trust, the relationship, and therefore it's straightforward. There's no duplicity there. If you remember, if you read Radhanath Swami's book, Journey Home, there's a point when he and his friend are in India, somewhere already near Vrindavan or in there. I don't remember exactly, but they met Vaishnavas, and so they had a camera, but the camera they only had one film, and it only had whatever, 22 or 26 shots. So it's a rare thing at that time, a camera. So they thought, let's make a picture together, right? So his friend, he decided, because they wanted to save those shots for some sightseeing or whatever. So they wanted to save the shots, so they decided to cheat. And so Vaishnavas came, so they stand and somebody was making a shot and they were like smiling, but actually it was an empty shot. It wasn't, it wasn't. So when those devotees became extremely dissatisfied and he started crying. And it wasn't before because he was angry that, he didn't get famous on a picture somewhere on a wall of some person later on in America. He he was dissatisfied that the person decided to cheat on them, dealt in a duplicit way rather than straightforward way. He could have explained, I'm just saving those shots and I don't have much money and this is the only film. Um, and, whatever. However you wanted to explain it. I didn't want to cause you pain, but, whatever. However, but if there would be a desire to understand each other and explain this, fears or points, much, much better. So at that time, Jan Radha Maharaj and his friend, they learned the lesson how not to behaving differently, especially with saintly persons, because it's really not nice. So yes, so there's many techniques that we have to apply in Krishna consciousness that would definitely help us, and they're working. As with example of this girl Julia, that I'm, my neighbor, apartment building where I lived, her life got transformed when she applied those techniques, just because there was more mode of goodness and Krishna consciousness. Krishna has definitely helped her to go through this nightmare. When she came with this uh, huge amount of problems that she had, I actually twisted my head. I was like, oh, I'm not sure I'll be able to help on this one. It was really tough. But then I saw Krishna did his miracle. And I just said, do this, that, and I'll help you to wake up a few times. And that's it. And she became inspired, and everything went on well. So it's a very powerful process if we take seriously the process. So I'll be stopping here. Let's have a little time for question and comment. I'm sorry I had to go very fast in this disturbance with the computer. I apologize for that. Anyone would like to say something? Hare Krishna Shrev, thank you for being with us.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
I'd
Krishna
like
Thakur
to
Prabhu.
thank you for a very nice class. Um, to be clear, I'm just trying to get a clear picture here. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is recommending to beat the mind with a shoe and with a broomstick. So you are suggesting that that process entails performing the austerities of the mind. Is that correct?
Oh, it's the question.
Yes.
Well, let's have a look at the purport again.
I'm just
Hmm?
trying to understand clearly, what is that process of beating the mind with a shoe and a broomstick? You were saying earlier in the class that it's a very intense process. So I'm trying to understand precisely what is that process? What does it entail?
Well, I was just sharing that some devotees that I know have actually practiced it as it is. So that means they were in their imagination, or however you want to call it, they were beating their mind when the mind was saying something. They were like beating it with a shoe. That thought that came, whatever, beating it with a shoe. So some devotees practice it literally verbatim as it was said, it's Prabhupada quotes here. Srila Prabhupada Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur used to say that in the morning our first business should be to beat the mind with shoes 100 times, and before going to bed, beat the mind 100 times with a broomstick. So that's what I said, that devotees who practice it, and I actually know a few like that, they said it's becoming intense because you are just beating those bad thoughts with your imaginary broomstick or shoe is actually an intense practice. So that's what I was quoting. But of course, our practice, how we beat our mind, is by attentive chanting. And I was giving the example of what Srila Prabhupada says about the techniques of how to control the mind, what is the authority of the mind, but then simplicity, gravity, and so forth. But how is it actually practiced? How this beating is becoming not so severe. You can press yourself so much, your mind, restricting yourself on everything and anything, very, very, fanatically. But actually, what happens is that your mind will just burst extremely if you just restricted it just by kind of beating those thoughts and like this, rather than just beating those thoughts, acknowledge them that those thoughts are existing in you, and they're just passing by as a river flows, and just to not focus on them, focus on some other thoughts, which is, because it's easy to focus on thoughts and connected sense pleasures from those thoughts. Krishna consciousness, there are many, and some of them are easy to think about. So when those thoughts come, rather than just beating it and stopping it and becoming a great hero of a thought controller, rather just focus on the Krishna consciousness thoughts, and with that you'll be able to control. So that's a very nice beating of those thoughts, and that's what Srila Prabhupada recommends in this verse 17, 16. I hope that clarifies.
Yes, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
But if you have something to add, Tarka Prabhu, about how you understand Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's quote, and I would love to hear. I'm sure others also.
I really don't have anything to add. I think you covered it very, very well. The process is really our entire process of Krishna consciousness, the practice of our sadhana. And here Srila Prabhupada is talking in part, and what was it, the first verse we covered today, text 3, talking about not giving up the practice of penances and austerities. They should be performed. So just like today, we are observing Ekadashi, Pandavanir Jali. Some devotees will be fasting entirely, even from water. And Srila Prabhupada has recommended sort of practice that austerities are that some tapasya must be performed. Sometimes devotees will quote Sri Krishna from Bhagavad Gita, the verse in which he says that what can repression accomplish? But I think sometimes that verse is taken out of context. Repression, of course, Srila Prabhupada explains elsewhere that tapasya, what is tapasya but repression? You're denying your mind or your senses. It's a process of repression. What Krishna was saying to Arjuna was that because he had a particular nature, he's going to act according to that nature, and that repression to change that fact. But for purposes of advancement in Krishna consciousness, some tapasya is necessary, and that tapasya is actually a process of repression. At least initially, it's a process of repression, just like we follow four regulative principles. They are processes of repression. You don't say that, well, don't follow the regulative principles because what can that accomplish? Initially, our heart may not be in it. I refrain from 4 different types of sinful activity, even though I still am attached to them. I still have an inclination to perform those activities, and simply refraining from doing them is not going to change that necessarily. Nonetheless, by refraining from that sinful activity, first of all, we stop the cycle of regenerating reactions, karmic reactions. That's important. But then we also engage ourselves in positive activities. So there's 2 aspects. There's negation of the of what is detrimental, and then we take up the positive activities of hearing and chanting and engaging in devotional service. So together, it becomes a powerful process of purification. This is going off on a tangent here, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Anyway, apart from that, I don't really have anything to add. Hare Krishna. Thanks again.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Tarita Prabhu. And I just wanted to add real quick, Guru Puja is starting. You started because I want to still say something. So I just remembered one thing. Sometimes devotees saying, but the age we live in is becoming more difficult, and we're bombarded by social media, advertisements, the culture when basically you're considered to be dressed if you have a strip of something across your body parts, and and that's why it's like impossible to practice, and that's why we're so fallen in this day of age. But I just remembered, if you remember when Gorkishore Das Babaji left the body, that was 1915, 1915, in India. So what did Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said to those case Goswamis when they wanted to claim his body to, practice, to attract tourists to their temples? And he said, who have actually followed, who did not have an unrestricted, who didn't have illicit sex in the last month, I think he said first. And, raise your hand, I'll give this body to you. I'm his only disciple. I'm an Aishtika brahmachari. I've been full. So nobody raised the hand. And then he said, okay, the last, weeks, and then it ended up in days, in the last 3 days or something like this. And still nobody claimed the body. And at that time in India, there was no television in, Bengal or in these places. Okay, there were some maybe newspapers, but nobody dared to put some advertisements in a newspaper that would agitate the mind or things like that. It was very, very you can say pure environment, in a sense, at least, of those external advertisements, what to speak of internet and other things. So, but still, because of the mind, the polluted mind, and the desires of people in Kali Yuga, this was happening even in the holy places amongst the so-called holy people. So that problem with mind is an eternal business of a jiva, of a conditioned soul. But the techniques are working regardless, as with this example of Julia, regardless of the day and age we live and how much polluted we are actually also. Because those are also those are Krishna's techniques. Those are an acharya's blessings in them also, which makes it a double powerful combination. And that's why Srila Prabhupada was confident. If you chant offenselessly, regardless of we cannot even strictly disassociate men and women in our temples or whatever, and we've been even criticized for it, but if we follow that, we will be successful. So I just wanted to add that point also. Hare Krishna. Thank you, devotees. I'm leaving the computer in the Guru Puja. I actually have to run in a true sense of this word. I promised Vadim that we will run today, so I'll send my Guru Puja on the way to change. Hare Krishna. Tarashma Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.